I love to do these things. I love my work. I love working. I have 2 sons that work with me and 30 other people that are just brilliant at communicating the ideas that help people to create place. But I have been out of the mainstream and on the edges for way too long. I've been pushed aside by people for maybe good reasons. I used to say, whatever a traffic engineer says, do the opposite, and you will be building your community. It's 100% right. I learned something last night about architects, and that they really shouldn't be doing anything below the 3rd floor. Okay? And another bad one, and I have my son and daughter-in-law are landscape architects. But landscape architects may be the wrong skill set to do public spaces in cities. Okay? So let's start with that. So we've been outside, and now the idea of place and placemaking is becoming center to communities all over the world. It is absolutely a movement. There's no doubt about it. It's not going to disappear. Some designers and professionals may try to co-opt it, but in the end, I don't think they're going to realize that it's not about their profession. It's about the community and the aspirations and future of communities. So I'm going to just show a couple of examples, and this will getting deeper and deeper into what I'm going to talk about. La Defensa is a great street on Sundays, not so great other days. And one of the great things is when you go there, and my other son, who's not here, was married in the Russian Orthodox Church 4 years ago, and so we spent a lot of time here. And when my now daughter-in-law was, just before she got married, she was in a building that was right on La Defensa, and Sunday is the day for the church. And she comes out onto the street and in a white wedding gown, and you can imagine how people react in a great street at a great time when people are fully engaged in being part of that street like that. So you have people, wonderful people like this, is show me the money, and then she has her friends come and talk to her, and it's these little human things that are really what place is about. It's not about the design. It's about how people come into the place and make it so special that you feel that you're in something that is almost in a different world. It's so wonderful. And you know, these people taking a picture of a very famous guitarist, or this guy doing a wonderful puppet show, or this woman talking to her friends as she comes on the street. And this guy who, when you put money into the bucket, he changes his position. And everyone starts to smile and laugh and love it. And then this is my favorite one, is just that people trying to get pictures or give a kiss to this person whose face is not there. So, and then these kinds of scenes that people are very comfortable being in this kind of a place enough so that they start something. And then this, I love the faces of the 2 people. 2 very different thoughts about what is going on. But that's what the street life is about. That's totally what it's about. And if we don't go to that level, we're just fooling ourselves. It just looks nice instead of full of life. So that's there's a transition that we have to go from just thinking of nice looking to something that's just really part of the soul. And you can do this in Turkey and Istanbul. There's so many places that's working. In Barcelona, in Paris, Hong Kong. You know, this is one of my favorite shots with the man walking with his son down a street market that the Hong Kong government is trying to get rid of because it's too messy and too interesting. Times Square. You know, all of these things. And then we came up with this phrase, when you design your community around cars, you get more cars, right? That's what we've done everywhere. When you have one great street and 99.9% of the streets are not great or even close to great, you got a real problem. Buenos Aires has a real problem. We get signs like this saying that the cars, as they get bigger and bigger, they get scarier and scarier. Do we really want them in our streets? They ought to be banned forever. And when you design your community around people and places, you get them. You get more people. So that's the big deal, okay? But we are now in a very serious state where in the vast majority of countries and regions and cities and villages, there is no sense of place. There's no ownership. No one cares. There's little economic sustainability. There's open hostility, anger, lack of respect for human or natural life, no ecological concern, and on and on and on. And we cannot have that. We have to get away from that. And placemaking and a focus on place is the politics of the future. It's about common sense. It's about quality of life. It's having a future of happiness and well-being. It's not just about that place. It's about what you saw in those pictures all over. And how does everything start to have that spirit and that soul? It's transformation that is community-based. The outcomes can be enormous, and we can do it quickly. We cannot take time. So we have a phrase called lighter, quicker, cheaper that is so incredibly effective and transformative over a short time. I'll show you that. So we're at a critical moment in time. The idea of bracing that idea of place can mobilize entire countries, cities, communities to define their future, and it is. We've been working in about 40 countries. We're change agents, we're community organizers. We can deliver, working through a community, what that place can become and what they can do quickly. It can add purpose and foundation to people's lives. It creates ownership and sharing. We're moving into a sharing economy all over the world. It allows local wisdom and common sense to thrive. It's community-based and holistic. We've been doing this all over the world. We're watching this thing explode in interest, and it's happening with people all over. It isn't something you can own. It's not our brand. It's about the community. And so we have been sharing that with people all over the place, and as they come into this, they become change agents. And that's what we need to do. We get an enormous following. We share all of our material. Anyone can get to it and use it. And I got an email from someone from Portugal today who used it to do the transit system in a city in Portugal. So it's going on, and it's having an impact. We have partners. Axon Johnson has been marvelous. And the research that they focused on, our advocacy and UN Habitat together, are really a force that can have enormous impact. And as we go into next year and the following year, I've got some very good ideas about how we as a group can really change the face of this earth. So we run something called the National Center for Biking and Walking. We have 2 conferences next week, one with the Placemaking Leadership Council. There's 700 people in that group. There are 1,000 people coming to Pittsburgh for the National Center for Biking and Walking. We have a partnership with Southwest Airlines in the United States. They have 91 cities, and in 10 years, we have $100,000 to give to each of those cities to do an activation and have a placemaking discussion with those cities. So their whole idea is delivering people to places that are good places to go and that are about those communities. And then we have the National Association of Retired People, and they, 36 million strong, are moving from walking to placemaking as their agenda. Kaiser Permanente is a health agency, and they're doing the same thing, and the National Association of Realtors, and we have someone from the National Trust. Patrice is here, and we're developing a partnership with them. We run an institute on rural design, and so it's small towns and big cities. It's becoming a movement. There's no question about that. It's really quite wonderful to watch that grow. I want to go back. When I got started, it was about these amazing people that were really doing applied research, not academic research, but applied research. Margaret Mead was a teacher of mine, an amazing woman. But her whole attitude was much more about taking action, being involved in something, not just studying something. Holly White I worked with. Jane Jacobs, she'd come into our office frequently because she had worked with Holly White at the Fortune magazine, and then she moved to Toronto to get away from the war. Alan Jacobs, Amazing human being. Donald Appleyard, I'll show some quotes from them. Christopher Alexander, Jan Gehl, Hans Monderman. These are people that are seminal thinkers and activists that have created, if you look at it, the foundation for placemaking. It's all right there. It's in them. They've done it. They were aggressive about it. They were provocative. They were profound. And I had the opportunity to work for Holly White in the Street Life Project. He wrote The Social Life of Small Urban Spaces, which is a seminal work that is getting more and more interest, again, as we go through. I studied the street. I did a whole film on the day in the life of a wastebasket. The old antique shop, 39,000 people came by it. I went into the store and I said, you must like your location because there's so many people going by. The window's even canted. There are more people going that direction, closer to the window. And the guy said, no, I'm next to a bank. And they start going faster as they go by the bank and it takes them 2 or 3 stores to get into a window shopping mode. So it's at that scale that you begin to see the dynamics of sidewalks and how they can become part of it. The Street Life Project was not about the street, it was about the sidewalks and sidewalk life. We looked at prostitution, we looked at every kind of street corner conversations. Everything was part of that discussion. So, and he said, I end in praise of small spaces. The multiplier effect is tremendous. It's not just the number of people using them, or the larger number of people who pass by and enjoy them vicariously, or even the larger number who feel better about a city center. For a city, such places are priceless, whatever the cost. They're built of a set of basics, and they're right in front of our noses if we will look. Blank walls are an end in themselves. They declare the supremacy of architecture over humanity, of a building over a person. There's so many ways of doing a blank wall that pushes people away from those buildings. That what attracts people is most would appear as other people. It's pretty obvious. Benches are artifacts, the purpose of which is to punctuate architectural photographs. They're not so good for sitting. Pretty obvious, the top and the bottom. Perching versus resting. People tend to sit, most where there are places to sit. One of the best things about water is the look and feel of it. It's not right to put water before people and keep them away from it. Look at some of the images later on. People don't let that happen, even though they will do the design that the water is not touchable. You want to see a place with activity, put out food. There's so many parks departments that don't want food in their parks. It doesn't make sense. And the street is the river of life, the place where we come together, the pathway to the center, or it was. And now it's the river of traffic. And Jane Jacobs, this is really important, she said intricate minglings of different uses in a city are not a form of chaos. On the contrary, they represent a complex and highly developed form of order. Chaos is what we thrive in. Designers are trying to remove anything that messes something up, and that takes the life out of it. Never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it's the only thing that ever has. And that's what we see placemaking as doing, and really actually doing it. And then Dallin Jacobs says if we can develop and design streets so that they're wonderful, fulfilling places to be, community building places, attractive for all people, then we will have successfully designed about 1/3 of the city directly, and will have had an immense impact on the rest. So that's the whole idea of streets as public spaces. We call it streets as places. And then Jan Gehl and David will talk more about that, him. And then Donald Appleyard talked about how people know people across the streets in their communities. If there's not much traffic, as more traffic comes in, they know less people. Pretty obvious, but the research was great. And then Christopher Alexander, I don't want to hear about green buildings anymore. Sustainability is simply an extension of the technocratic society we find ourselves in. And I love that. I mean, sustainability has to be challenged on many levels. It means different things to different people. So we've got to do that. And then Jane Jacobs, the erosion of cities by automobiles, proceeded as a kind of nibbling, small at first, eventually hefty bites. The street is widened here, another straightened there, wide avenue is converted to one-way flow, and more lane went into parking. No one step in that process was crucial, but cumulatively the effect is enormous. You can look outside this window to see what happened there. And then, I love this one, lowly, unpurposeful, and random as it may appear, sidewalk contacts are the small change from which a city's wealth of public life may grow. And then Hans Monderman, I don't know if you know him, he died recently. If you want vehicles to behave like they're in a village, build a village. And essentially what that means is a transfer of power and responsibility from the state to the individual and the community. That's a big idea that has many ramifications in many different ways. The only way to make a busy road intersection safe is to make it feel more dangerous. He's the father of shared space, and you can see the difference between these two intersections. One was just dominated by anger and frustration, and the other one is dominated by multi-uses and connections. His whole purpose was to create eye contact between the driver and the pedestrian or the bicyclist. And so when you focus on place, you do everything differently. How do we create these sacred places? It's really hard. There are tremendous benefits. I think we'll talk more about this tomorrow when Ethan does the session. And we worked in New York early on, and we had an enormous impact before the designers came in and took away and used design-based processes that didn't deliver the kind of places that New York really needs and isn't getting. Rockefeller Center, before and after. Times Square, Ethan led a movement, the Streets Renaissance, that the city would never have been able to do any of the work that they did without that foundation. One reason is that there was a whole movement to get rid of the transportation commissioner and replace that person with Jeanette Sadeghan, but it was also the groundwork for what happened in New York, and it would never have happened without that going on. And that was the beginning of it, and it became this. And Bryant Park had 9 groups of people dealing in drugs, and it turned into one of the great, best managed public spaces in the world. The obstacles, why we don't have better cities. From the 50s to today, we've been defined by disciplines and narrowly focused movements. Movements, too, not just the disciplines. They've been in their own little silos, and we've been so much design-led versus place-led government structure. It's been an obstacle because they formed themselves around the disciplines. So we have a tremendous effort to move away from that. Each profession has become its own audience. An example. This is the Landscape Architecture Award in Canada for the best designed project 2 years ago, okay? The best designed project in Canada. It was also the Architectural Award for the best piece of architecture in Canada 2 years ago. We don't know what that building is until someone told us it was a water filtration plant in a park. And this is the award-winning playground, I guess. I don't know if you call it a playground. But what's so funny is that this little kid came into the park and he started taking the white stones and putting them in the black stones. And his parents quickly picked him up, moved the stones back, and left. And then, what was even worse is that they have swings. Guess what? There's only one swing in one area with white stones and one swing in another area with white stones. So the parents had to be separated, and their children were separated. So it's just, I mean, this is, and they got the award. This is stupid. But look at one, it wouldn't win an award, but it's absolutely award-winning in terms of a place. Look at this. They even have food and seating, and it's all together. People talk to each other, maybe. You know, it's not like, it's just sick. And then this, everyone is after Frank Gehry. This is not Shanghai, this is Dusseldorf. It's on a big poster in Dusseldorf. Those buildings are crap. You know why? You can't even find the door to get in the building. And then this is on the waterfront side, and the only way we could tell that someone was in the building were these dumpsters. So that's not architecture. I don't know if that's architecture, we've lost it totally. And then this is a building that I have to look out our back window in our office at, and this building is so bad, and it bankrupted Cooper Union, the college, because it went over budget by something like $20 million. And this is the way it presents itself. And the architecture critic for the New York Times said the building's not perfect, but it is a serious work that we don't see enough of in New York, a bold architectural statement of genuine civic value. It's a lively public spaces reaffirm that enlightenment comes from the free exchange of ideas, not just inward contemplation. Yet the more you look at the building, the more it looks right at home in its surroundings. The curve of the corner, which lifts up to invite people inside the lobby, has an unexpected softness. Softness. This is what's around it. You know, where are we going? Lincoln Center. I like the architecture here, but it's not about place. It's about object and form, and it's beautiful. You can't touch the water. You can eat here. Cecilia and I had lunch here. It cost us $50 or way more than that. And it's an elitist place. It's not an inclusive place. It's about looking at but not participating in. There's some seating, but the only thing you can do is sit. They have a nice fountain that's sort of okay, but that's about the only thing where a place you can do. We worked in Perth, Australia, similar size cultural center. This is before, after, before, terrible. After. So, you know, this is so inclusive, it became the destination, the biggest destination in the city. And just going on, it looked like this before and that. This is all lighter, quicker, cheaper. It happened in a year and a half. And it made a very boring, dull place into a major place for all the citizens of Perth. Inclusive, engaging. The institutions became far more popular, and so on. So whom does design serve? We've lost our soul. We have been blindly coerced into believing that award-winning design professionals and top-down authority will lead us into a beautiful, prosperous future. We have been scammed by architects giving us their stuff and saying that it's award-winning and should be what leads the development of cities. So we have to turn everything upside down to get it right side up. We have to get from inadequate to extraordinary. So when you focus on place, you do everything differently, totally differently. The idea of the benefits of place, about accessibility, about local economy, about health, about interaction, these are amazing benefits from just doing a good place. You saw it in the beginning slides. So there's one great, that didn't come in. So placemaking is a sacred community process. It's natural, organic, it's economic development, it's scaled to each community, it creates social and place capital, and the return is healthy and viable communities. Yes?
If there was one thought you wanted to just pause on.
Can I show Detroit?
Just
as
pause.
Amazing transformation?
Let's do that in the Q&A.
Okay.
Right?
So the thought, what's the thought?
What was the one thought you wanted to pause on for now?
I think I've sort of made it clear that we need to do something pretty dramatic, and we need to do it quickly. We can't take time. We can't go back into the world that we've been living in. We have to come out into a new, fully different direction that is turning everything upside down and getting it right side up.